Hello dear students, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy interview guidance program. So in this particular lecture we are going to discuss about the basic structure doctrine, and that is a judicial innovation which has been invented by Indian judiciary in Keshwanand Bharati judgment. Okay, so there was a very important news article that was given in the Indian Express newspaper, that is with respect to basic structure doctrine. Okay, so this article is actually talking about how basic structure doctrine became one of the strongest safeguards of the Indian democracy or India's democracy. So we all know the significance of the basic structure doctrine and how it has been protecting Indian constitution, constitutional principles as well as constitutionality. It has prevented the majoritarian tendencies in the parliament and also make sure that the constitutional principles are followed and respected by the other wings or other organs of the government. So therefore in this context we will understand what exactly is the basic structure and what is the evolution of the basic structure over a period of time, and what Supreme Court has said in the Keshwanand Bharati judgment, and how basic structure doctrine is actually a significant aspect for Indian democracy or India's democracy. Now first, basic structure doctrine. So why basic structure doctrine is in news, right? So recently Bangladesh, it is one of the third world countries, and Bangladesh is also called as a Commonwealth nation. So what are these Commonwealth nations? Now Commonwealth nations are nations which were under the colonial rule. Okay, so India is also a Commonwealth. Okay, so there are different countries which are now part of the Commonwealth, right? So Bangladesh along with other Commonwealth have actually imported India's judicial innovation or intervention, that is the basic structure doctrine. Along with India, or taking inspiration from the Indian constitution, especially from the basic structure doctrine, Bangladesh and other Commonwealth countries have imported the Indian judicial innovation, that is basic structure doctrine. Now this basic structure doctrine actually reflects advocacy, idealism and independence. Okay, so this especially emphasizes that the jurisdiction of different organs or different agencies is within the purview of the constitutionally sanctioned powers and responsibilities. Okay, so therefore in this context the basic structure doctrine actually reflects advocacy, idealism and independence. So in this context, what does basic structure doctrine actually says? Okay, so basic structure is actually a constitutional doctrine, or it is a constitutional principle that limits the powers of the parliament to amend the constitution and preserve its essential features. Okay, so first and foremost we have to understand that what is a basic structure doctrine. We all know that the basic structure doctrine has actually invented by the Supreme Court in Keshwanand Bharati judgment. So even though it has been invented in the Keshwanand Bharati judgment, so it has evolved from the Shankari Prasad judgment 1951 itself, right? So the basic structure doctrine is actually a constitutional principle, and this limits the power of the parliament to amend the constitution and preserve its essential features. So there are a number of essential features that the Indian constitution have. For example, secularism, the parliamentary form of government, free and fair elections, rule of law. So all these things are part of the basic structure, or they are considered as essential features of the Indian constitution. So therefore the basic structure doctrine preserves and protects these essential features. Apart from that, it is a form of judicial review. Now what is a judicial review? So judicial review has been sanctioned by the Indian constitution under Article 32 as well as Article 226 of the Indian constitution. Okay, so judicial review says that if any legislature which is against the constitutional morality, constitutional principles, so that can be declared as unconstitutional or ultra-wise. So therefore this basic structure doctrine actually used to test the legality of any legislation by the courts. Okay, so it will test the legality of any legislation which is passed by the parliament or state legislative assemblies. So therefore it protects the democracy from being distorted or destroyed by the parliament. So the parliament usually make laws, we all know about that. So those legislations should be in conformity with the constitution, So they should not destroy the basic features or the basic structures of the Indian constitution. So therefore it actually gives the authority to the courts. Okay, so courts will decide whether any law which is against the constitutional principles or constitutional provisions of the constitutional provisions. So therefore the basic structure doctrine is further expansion of the process of judicial review. Okay, so judicial review has been provided by Article 32 or Article 226 of the Constitution. So in fact, basic structure doctrine is nowhere mentioned in the Indian Constitution, neither it does not have any legislative backup as well. Okay, so it is just a judicial innovation, so that has been invented by Indian judiciary during the Keshwanand Bharati judgment in the year 1973. Okay, so after that the other important aspect of or significant aspect of the basic structure doctrine is that over the years various facets of the basic structure doctrine have evolved. Okay, so and are openly defined by the Indian judiciary. Okay, so over a period of time, so the basic structure doctrine has been actually evolved and it has openly defined by the judiciary. So there are four important cases, so that are very important to understand the basic structure doctrine. Okay, so these are important for the evolution of the basic structure doctrine. So firstly, Shankari Prasad case in the year 1951, Golaknath case 1967, Keshwanand Bharati judgment 1973, and Minerva Mills case 1980. So all these cases are most important cases with respect to the evolution of the Indian judicial innovation, that is the basic structure doctrine. And after that we need to talk about the features which are part of the basic structure doctrine. So what are the major constituents of the basic structure doctrine? So firstly, federal and secular character of the Indian constitution. So this is part of the Indian this is part of the basic structure doctrine. And after that, the democratic character of our polity is also. Now India is a democracy, and if there's any legislation or any enactment which which alters the democratic character of the Indian polity, so that could be a violation of the basic structure doctrine. And apart from that, the liberty of thought, expression and belief and faith worship is also mentioned as part of the basic structure doctrine. Okay, so now these are mentioned in the Indian preamble, and even they are also part of Indian Constitution, Article 14. Okay, right to equality, right? So right to Article 14 and Article 24 of the Indian Constitution, right? So Article 25 of the Indian Constitution and even Article 19 of the Indian Constitution. So welfare state and egalitarian society, equality of status and opportunity, and separation of powers, dignity of the individual, unity and integrity of the nation, and sovereignty of the nation. So all these are essential features or the fundamental features of the basic structure doctrine which are mentioned in the Indian Constitution. So after that, we need to talk about the evolution of basic structure doctrine. So how this doctrine has evolved over a period of time. So first and foremost, we need to talk about the Shankari Prasad case of 1951. Okay, so Shankari Prasad case, one of the most important judgment in the evolution of the basic structure doctrine. So in this particular judgment, the Supreme Court has actually upheld Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. So what does Article 368 of the Indian Constitution? Article 368 of the Indian Constitution says, so this particular article says that Parliament has the power to amend the Constitution. So, okay, so the amendment powers of the Constitution are actually mentioned in Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. So the Parliament has the power to amend the Constitution, including the fundamental rights as well. So there will be no restrictions on the Parliament to amend the Constitution, including the fundamental rights as well. So in this Article 368, so there are three different types of amendment. So one is amendment through simple majority, and amendment through special majority, and amendment through special majority with the consent of the half of the state legislatures. So therefore The Shankari Prasad case is one of the most important case, and after that the Sajjan Singh versus State of Rajasthan case is also another most important case in the history of basic structure doctrine. So it has been held in the year 1965. So in this particular case, the Sajjan Singh versus State of Rajasthan, the court reiterated that Parliament's power to amend any part of the constitution. Okay, so Parliament can amend any part of the Indian constitution. And after that, IC Golaknath versus State of Punjab, 1967. So in this particular case, the Supreme Court has held that Parliament could not curtail the fundamental rights which are guaranteed by the Indian Constitution. Okay, so fundamental rights are actually guaranteed by the Indian Constitution, and Supreme Court held that Parliament could not curtail the fundamental rights. So Parliament have no powers. Parliament have no powers to amend the fundamental rights. So apart from fundamental rights, the Parliament have the powers to amend any other part of the Indian Constitution, and this is what the Golaknath versus State of Punjab has actually mentioned. Now, evolution of the basic structure doctrine is very, very important for your mains examination, so you have to pay attention on this. After that, the case 1 and the Bharati judgment in the year 1963. So this particular judgment is one of the most significant and landmark judgment in the evolution of the basic structure doctrine. So in case 1 and the Bharati case 1973, so what Supreme Court has held, that the Parliament has the power to amend, or the Parliament has power to amend any part of the Indian Constitution, but that particular amendment should not alter or destroy the basic structure doctrine. Okay, so however, the Supreme Court has not defined what constitutes the basic structure doctrine. So what does it mean when Supreme Court says basic structure? So Supreme Court has never defined the basic structure doctrine. So therefore, over a period of time, different features of the Indian Constitution started including in the basic structure doctrine. So after that, we need to talk about Indira Gandhi versus Rajnarayan case 1975, and this is also one of the important judgment in with respect to basic structure. So the basic structure theory was applied for the first time, and the independent conduct of elections was categorized as basic structure. So as I have already told you, conducting free and fair elections is part of the basic structure doctrine. So Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan case, this is the first a case where the basic structure doctrine has actually applied for the first time. Okay, so conducting independent elections was also categorized as part of the basic structure. So after that, we need to talk about 1980 Minerva Mills case as well. Okay, so in 1980 Minerva Mills case, it is pertain to, or it is with respect to 42nd constitutional amendment. Okay, so it is pertain to 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, and it has been introduced by the Indira Gandhi government. Right, so it pertained to 42nd Amendment Act, and it is introduced by the Indira Gandhi government, and this is the 42nd Amendment Act is also called as a mini constitution. Okay, so in a majority verdict by the Supreme Court, it has held that the power of judicial review of constitutional amendments. Okay, so the top court upheld the power of judicial review of constitutional amendment. So it has upheld the 42nd constitutional amendment in the Minerva Mills case 1980. So in this context, we have to understand the significance of the basic structure doctrine. What is the significance of the basic structure doctrine? So firstly, it protects the living spirit of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so Indian Constitution is often called as a living document. So therefore, it protects the living spirit of the Indian Constitution, holding up the body of its text. And after that, it is the soul of the Constitution. The basic structure doctrine is actually considered as the soul of the Indian Constitution because it is inextricably linked to the values which are enshrined in the preamble of the Indian Constitution. Okay, right, so it has been inextricably linked to the values which are enshrined in the preamble, without which the document and the ideas that make it sacred would collapse. Right, So therefore, in this context, this is considered as the soul of the Indian constitution. Now without the basic structure, a judicial innovation like basic structure, then the constitution would collapse, similar to countries like Nepal, Sri Lanka, what has been happened with the constitution of those countries. And after that, it is considered as the bedrock of the constitutional interpretation. Now based on the basic structure doctrine, the Supreme Court has been, or the judiciary has been started interpreting several other provisions. Okay, so according to the Granville Austin, he has done extensive work on the Indian constitution and Indian political system. So according to the Granville Austin's working of the democratic constitution, said that basic structure doctrine is fairly said to have become the bedrock of the constitutional interpretation in India. Okay, so this is the bedrock of the constitutional interpretation in India. So it is used to secure the rule of law as well. Okay, so the basic structure doctrine is actually used to secure the rule of law. So courts have clarified that the basic structure actually aims to secure rule of law, and it is essential for preservation of the democratic system as well. So we all know the utility of the basic structure doctrine. So if there is no basic structure doctrine, then the majoritarianism in the parliament would certainly alter the basic provisions of the Indian constitution, such as secularism, rule of law, and free and fair elections. So therefore that would ultimately lead to significantly altering India's democratic principles, India's constitutional morality, constitutionality, everything. So in this context, we need to talk about the role of judiciary as well. Now as per the constitution, judiciary is the final interpreter of the Indian constitution. So therefore judiciary plays more proactive role when it comes to the Indian constitution. Now judicial activism, we can say that basic structure doctrine is an example of the judicial activism. Okay, so apart from that, we need to talk about the checks and balances as well. Okay, so you may have come across the word separation of powers and checks and balances. So checks and balances actually ensures that the jurisdiction of the one organ would not surpass the other organ. Okay, so it is actually applied to constitutional amendments to ensure that these amendments does not dilute the fundamentals of our constitution. Okay, so the amendments to ensure the amendment, so these amendments will not dilute the fundamentals of our constitution. So here we need to talk about one important fact. So that is Article 368, that is with respect to amendment of the Indian constitution. So Article 368 in part 20 gives the Parliament power to amend constitution and its procedure. Okay, so it gives Parliament the power to amend the constitution and its procedure under Article 368 of the Indian Constitution, Part 20. Okay, so it will check majoritarianism. What does it mean when we say majoritarianism? When one single party has a majority in the Parliament, then that would significantly alter majority of the Indian Constitution through the special majority, through the provision of special majority. So therefore basic structure doctrine would effectively check the majoritarianism. So it checks the impulses of Parliament, since it places a substantive limits on the power to amend the constitution. So in fact, the basic structure doctrine would actually place substantive limits on the power to amend the Indian constitution. So it is considered as a safety valve as well, according to Upendra Bakshi. So the doctrine is useful to apply the brakes when engine of amending power threatened to overrun the constitution. So therefore you have to understand this: when the engine of amending power by the Parliament actually threatened to overrun the constitution, and the basic structure doctrine actually helped as a safety valve. So therefore basic structure doctrine, even though has faced a lot of criticism as well, because through the basic structure doctrine the judiciary has started dominating the other organs of the government, and it has becoming judicial overreach. Okay, so but even though criticism, judicial the basic structure doctrine has actually helped us to strengthen Indian democracy and democratic values, protect Indian constitution and the constitutional principles. So therefore the basic structure doctrine has become an ideal, and several other countries have started adopting this basic structure doctrine as well. So that's all about the Indian Constitution and the basic structure doctrine. So please like our video and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.